Hey students, what's going on? Jourdain here, and I have a really good friend with me today.
Jack Diven.
Jack Diven, also known as TC Brown of the Brown Town.
Brown Town. Don't forget the.
You gotta have the. So today we are working on our series Uncharted. We're
Week
going
82.
to week 82. It's like 5, week 6, but we're talking about something that I think is going to be really good for our students
Yes,
today.
absolutely.
And it's really about how to respond as a believer in your household. And I think we both came from 2 separate households.
Yep.
Obviously.
Else we would be blood brothers.
Yeah, brothers. Which that would have been a very interesting home to begin with.
We are not blood related. However, we are united underneath the umbrella of the kingdom of God.
Graft in, right?
That's my umbrella, by the way.
So we have 2 different contexts. For me,
Yes.
like I grew up really in a family of non-believers, agnostics, some of them, a lot of them atheists.
Okay, wow.
And so I really didn't know what the whole Christian thing looked like. I didn't get saved until I was 20. And so even then, I was really living in a home that wasn't really conducive to believers. But I know, TC, your situation was a little bit different than mine, right?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a Jesus-believing, church-going family here in the South, which I would imagine a lot of you grew up in a situation very, very similar.
Yeah.
That's probably the most common.
I would agree. I would agree.
Down here in the southern, I forget what state I'm in. All right, southern Alabama. Anyway, so I don't know. As far back as I can remember, I remember going to Sunday school. I remember going to church. I remember going to vacation Bible school, to summer camp, to the big stuffs. You know, all of those things and liking them. But those things were almost for me. Again, this is for me, and I'm not slamming my family when I say this. They were just like things we did, you know. And I remember there was a time in my life where we went pretty regularly, and it was, again, just more of a tradition.
Yeah.
And then there was a time where, I don't know, just as I got older, my parents split. We stopped going less and less and less, pretty much to the point to where we barely went at all. And ironically enough, I ended up giving my life to Jesus at the age of 14. Right, so I mean, some years have transpired here. I'm in a different family, so to speak, because I have a stepdad, step siblings. I mean, total dynamic, different city, everything. And I became a believer at the age of 14 and started getting heavily involved in the church that I attended. So get this, as a teenager, on my own. And that doesn't mean my family was bad or anything. It was just kind of where I was. So kind of my unit, my group that I identified with was my church group.
We have a lot of students that are in
absolutely.
that same boat.
It's very common. So I see that and you see that, I'm sure, where we go, oh man, we see that and we're encouraged by that. But I remember being in that boat going, man, I'm awfully lonely right now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, how do I navigate this? How do I don't know, talk to my mom, my stepdad, even step siblings, my siblings, like what is my role in this whole thing, how Jesus has affected my life. And in my opinion, as a teenager, I was like, gosh, they're not doing what I think they should. I mean, there's so many questions
For
there,
sure.
Right? So anyway, I'll leave it there because I know we got
Well, and the thing is actually like that was very similar between us. Because like even though you were in like a Christian, Southern Christian family, I was also having that kind of loneliness, right? Because I remember going to church, being on fire for Jesus, as you would say. Down
literally
here
on fire.
Yeah, literally on fire. But that's that Southern terminology.
Right. Sure,
and then I would get home and it would be different.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the things that comes to mind. And even the scrutiny, I think, that comes with it.
Sure,
Because what I remember, and I think we've talked, and yours may have even been a little bit of reverse, was like, it's so easy to go home and either have your parents or your siblings judge you because like, oh, well, I thought you were a believer now. I thought you were all about Jesus. Why are you doing this? Yeah. Or on the flip side, be like, oh, well, Mom, I thought you were a believer. And, you know, like I'm a, like, and so you kind of get into that scrutiny, you get into that, I guess, unfortunate side effect of being really the only believer or the only one that you would say is like very heavily going to church in your family. And it oftentimes can cause division, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And the thing is scripturally we see this. Like it was really cool. John chapter 1, 9 through 12, it's really cool because it talks about Jesus as the true light, which was given light to everyone, was coming to the world. So they're talking about this idea that Jesus came to the world. But it does tell us that he came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. Yeah. Right? And so here's this idea where Jesus, God in the flesh, comes to this world. Right. He's born of his mother Mary. He grows up like a human child, but his own people reject him. And we see this in John 4 or in Luke 4.
So Jesus himself had his family basically Hey,
Yeah.
stop doing
Well,
that,
like you
or-
see his brother
Yeah,
James doesn't even
right.
come to the faith until I guess
Right.
later in his life.
Yeah.
And so here in Luke 4, you
Yeah,
see
that's huge.
Jesus is sitting there. He's in the synagogue and he's preaching, right? And he's a Nazarene, so he's in Nazareth. He's preaching like his good news, the gospel.
Yeah.
And they literally like riot and kick him out of the city. Like his
Yeah.
own people wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. His own extended family, the people that he grew up with. And if it happened to him, we can understand it's going to happen to us.
Absolutely.
Like we're going to be
For
put
sure.
in those same situations.
Well, we see it already.
For sure.
You
Yeah,
know, and
all the
you
time.
Guys, and I can't tell you how many times I've been to coffee, whether it's Refuge Soul Caffeine or whatever. I know I want some of that right now.
Oh
I know.
my
I'm like, oh gosh, in Jesus' name.
Refuge after this. No.
Right. So like having those conversations and I don't know about you, but like I go to those meetings and I go, you know, what is the big what's happening? What's happened in your life, Jourdain?
Yeah.
Tell me. And it's like, I'm the only Christian in my life, and then it just hits me like, that is so challenging.
Oh, it is.
That is so hard.
For sure.
And I don't know. I say that to say like, I can't imagine the pain you're going through because we went through it.
Yeah.
You know, so I can kind of relate just how difficult that is day in and day out, and just I don't know about you, but like there's a little bit of loneliness
There
attached
is.
to that.
There is.
You know.
And so the one thing like I've learned that helped with that, and like I know you can probably attest to it too, is community. It's
Yeah,
Christian community.
absolutely.
So like one of
Have to have
the
it.
verses that I love, and actually you're the one that got me on fire about this, was Hebrews 10:24, which then goes into 10:25, and it says, "And let us consider how to stir each other with love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, which is the habit of some." And it goes on, but I want to focus on the first part of 24, first part of 25,
Okay.
where it says, "Stir one another in good works and love." Right? And so as believers, we're meant to come together as a community
I don't
to
really know what that
encourage
was.
one another. Like you're making kettle corn or something.
I don't know.
We're supposed to come together as believers in a community to encourage one another, to lift each other up, and to meet together.
Yeah.
And so like oftentimes I think when we're in these kind of situations where we have this loneliness, the key isn't about staying lonely and just getting into the word. It's going to help, but it's about finding a community of believers who are going to make you feel like you're a part of something, because you are. Like students, if you are a believer and you feel lonely at home, you're a part of something that's way bigger than you. The global church is over 1 billion people. Like you have no reason to be lonely.
Yeah, that's huge. One thing I struggled with, and I don't know about you, but like for me, it was placing my own convictions on my family.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, and you can do this with your friends, anyone, but it was like, you know, God's doing this in my life. So, hey, he needs to be doing this in your life too. Mm-hmm. And man, already that just feels, that.
Oh yeah.
you don't
Especially
tell me-
during the receiving end.
Yeah. You don't tell me what I need to get right in my, I mean, how judgmental, how wrong is that? Right. And so for me, I can remember being, you know, again, getting or coming to know Jesus at 14 and getting baptized and man, I remember getting involved in a worship band. I mean, gosh, the list goes on.
Yeah.
And I loved it, right?
For sure.
But it was like this, look what's happening. Hey mom, why don't you do this? And she was like, I will do that. I'll do it in my own time. And it wasn't like a heated discussion, but I remember thinking wrongly because we aren't at the same pace.
That's right.
And that's okay.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like no one was wrong. If anyone, it was me, because I don't call the shots on how God works in your heart.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, no,
you know
that's
what
good.
I mean?
It's true.
So anyway, I don't know. That was a big one for me.
Oh yeah, and I remember dealing with the same thing. I remember coming to know Jesus, and then my mom being like, "Oh yeah, like Jesus is there. Like I know who Jesus is."
Right.
And I'm like, "But like, do you know him? Like,
Yeah,
come to
right.
church, do that." And like, you're
Right.
putting all that pressure, and it makes it
Right.
harder,
Right.
right? And so I think one thing happens when we get into that situation is we'll go either too far on one side or too far on the other.
Yeah.
So too far on one side, I think, is that situation where you're trying to push them.
Yeah.
I think too far on the other side is when you hit this point where you believe you can take the Christian hat off when you're at home.
Oh gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
that's
like
true.
you're a Christian out in the world, but then when
Yeah.
you get home and with your parents
Right.
and your siblings, you're still yelling at them,
Right.
you're still getting on to them, you're still arguing with them. And I really think that it's the easiest thing for believers to do who spend time with non-believers. And I'm not just
Yeah.
talking students,
No,
right?
you're
Like
right.
it's
You're
adults
right.
too. It's easy to get home and be like, okay, I've done a phenomenal job at evangelizing today.
Right.
I'm just going to take a break. Well, first
Right.
off, none of us are doing that good of a job at
Right.
evangelism during the day
Right.
where we
Right.
can just sit there and take a break.
Right.
But two, I think we get trapped in that because what it does is it puts us in a situation where when we're around the people that are closest to us, we're not actually demonstrating them
We're
or
relaxed.
to them
Yeah.
like what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And so like there's this reality, and I know we both know this, but like
Yeah.
sometimes our students just need to grab a hold of it. Is if you're going to say you're a believer
Right.
and that you put your faith in Jesus, that's an all day, every day,
commitment.
365 kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, well, I'm out with my friends, so that's
Yeah.
different then. And I mean,
Right.
I've even seen pastors do this.
Sure.
Like I've seen pastors be like, I'm at a coffee shop, I'm off, I'm not sharing the
Right.
gospel. So we're
Right.
all guilty of
Right.
this, but it's something we need to make sure that we're really doing. And so one thing that convicted me of this was I actually had a friend that challenged me. So TC, I want you to do me a favor.
Okay.
Think of all the people that you've met for the last time, right? So it's a
Okay.
weird way to put it, but like, guys, think of every single person you've run into, and maybe you've known them for 10 minutes, or maybe you've known them for 3 years.
Yeah.
But it's the last time you're gonna see them. You may never see them again.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, TC, in that time, did you do everything you could to show them the love of Christ?
Would have beat me up in
Yeah,
public.
right? But I remember hearing that, and it was so convicting because I realized maybe
Right.
a few of them,
No,
maybe
that's
a
good.
few of those people, but there's thousands of people that we've met
Right.
for the last time, and most of them we probably didn't show them the
Yeah.
love of who Jesus was.
We didn't think twice about it.
We didn't.
Right. Yeah.
And we get into that mentality where we kind of want to take a step back. And yet the gospel doesn't give us that. It tells
Sure.
us that we're commanded,
Right.
and we have the opportunity to, and the privilege even, to
Yeah.
share the gospel. It's a part of what we're supposed to do. Now,
Yeah.
that applies at home.
Right.
But here's the thing, and this is the caveat, and I know we've talked about this, but students, I don't want you to feel like you have the pressure to have to be the one that leads your family to
Right.
Christ.
Right.
Right? Like, that pressure should never be on you because it's God that's going to do that.
Right.
He's going to be the one that convicts them. But the thing I want you guys to understand is you may not be the one to lead them there,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you don't show them love.
Sure.
My favorite verse for sharing the gospel is a segment, it's 1 John 4:7-12.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to read that whole thing, but in verse 10 through 12, he pretty much lays out this idea that God loved us so much that he sent Jesus to die on the cross for us. And if he's going to love us that way, we need to love others. And then this is what it says: no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God abides in us and his love is perfected in us. Which pretty much means, well, you guys at home and us have never really seen God in person, in the flesh.
Right.
Every single person that we meet is going to see God through how we love them
Yeah.
if we are really living out that life of the believer.
Right.
So what I want you guys to understand is while your family may not be led to Christ by you, they are going to still learn who he is through you.
That's huge, man.
And so that means every time
Yeah.
you're at home with them, you're responsible for making sure you continue to live out your life following Christ and loving others as he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this, and I think we're kind of wrapping up here, but 2 Timothy 1:7 is a very popular verse, and
Oh, yeah.
you might be going like, how on earth is this connected to this idea of being the only Christian in your home or being that one person? 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and of self-control." Now, I love the word self-control.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes when we think of self-control, we think of when it's just me and myself and I in a room by myself. And yes, that is true. But it also has to do with you being around your family. Again, back to those
I
not
like
placing
that.
my
That's-
own
that's true.
convictions
I
around
love
my
that, yeah.
family. Oftentimes we get so angry, right? We get so frustrated or fearful because we want it to turn out how we prefer it to turn out.
Yeah.
Right? And we go, God, I'm doing the best I can. But again, back to your point, maybe it isn't up to you.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
That's
you
good.
and I have to exercise self-control at our home. Maybe the best way you can love your family member or your friend even is not to talk, right? Maybe it's just to listen.
That's good.
So
That's
just
true.
figuring out what that is, because everyone's different. Every family's different and every person is different. You have to figure out what works where you are. James is even very clear. Be quick to listen. It doesn't say be quick to speak.
That's it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you do have to know your stuff and have to know the right words to say, but listen is first. There's a reason it was first.
That's good. That's
You know,
gold, man.
so
No, yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I love it, man. Well, we're so glad to kind of continue this series with you guys, going through these great topics, and we actually have a few more that we're excited about.
Yep.
But I think that's it for today.
Yep. See you later.
So see you guys. Thanks for tuning in.